And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. I am back from the land of the mouse, the land of 85-degree weather every day. It was 22 degrees and kind of frosty this morning at my house, Joe Rexrode. A little bit sad to be back, to be quite frank with you. How we doing? What's going on?
Good. Good to have you back. It sounds like it was an awesome trip.
It was.
And yeah, it's actually, this would have been an okay week to leave though too.
It would have.
You should have made it a 2-week trip.
It really would have.
Because it's going to be a fun week out there.
Yep.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
Could when we first got to Florida last week, I started to see some rumblings on somehow I'm on like Nashville weather Twitter, like all these meteorologists both around the country and here in Nashville. It's just on my For You page for some reason.
Okay. You're a big weather guy.
Big weather guy. So like they started to come out with these models that had like 19 inches of snow for Nashville this week. And they're like, don't worry, this is probably wrong, but it may not be. And then now I think we've gotten down to just a few inches this week, but it could be doozy later this week in terms of the snow.
Yeah, I hadn't heard 19. Yikes. But yeah, enjoy the next couple of days, which are terrible weather on their own, but not like we're going to get, I guess, starting tomorrow night, right?
I guess so.
So, I mean, we can, like, if you have school age kids, and first of all, you may be on vacation, not listening to us right now anyway, but if you are listening and you have school age kids, you can probably plan on, having some activities Wednesday through Friday.
I would say that's probably the case.
Chores.
We've had our one snow this year. I'm usually good with one. Once we start to get into 2 and 3, I'm done with it at that point.
Well, the thing is, we've had, I think some of the worst have just randomly happened in March.
Yeah.
Ice storm stuff, I mean, I think this week should be it. Let's hope.
How was,
should be it.
Did Kuharski behave himself? Keyser told me he was on his best behavior, so that's good to hear.
That's
Kuharski in last week.
That's interesting. What would you consider best behavior? It's an interesting analysis.
I mean, he did well. I mean, I don't think he crashed out very much.
Didn't yell at you all that much?
No, I don't really think so.
So he didn't
Joe.
stroke out. So good job, Kuharski.
I mean, exactly. People were clamoring more for him.
It's positive.
Yeah, he was good. He has this take. I'm like, okay, so Robbie's gone, and now you're gonna. And he and I were screaming at each other about his fan gatekeeping. So I mean, I was like, okay. Well, you need to take that take to Robby,
okay,
the Packers and Heat fan, because he's like, oh, if you're not born there, then you can't. And then, of course, he's a Chelsea fan? Yeah, because
he likes the soccer over the pond.
He's over in England,
right?
Okay.
You get to pick your soccer team. That's fine, but Ed from New Jersey got all mad. It was good. Yeah. But it was a good week. He and Stilly screamed at each other for a half hour, and I sort of kept control this time, better than I have in the past.
Nice. Way to go.
It's not an easy one.
It is not.
It's like being at a daycare, man.
We got a lot to get into on the program today. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into all things Titans with him. As I typically do after I go on vacation for a significant length of time, I have a Rob rant to get into at 7:45.
I would hope you get some. You spend a week down at some theme parks. I would hope there'd be some rants.
I've probably got a few that
produced from that
go through this week. And I've got one for sure coming up at 7:45. So we will do that. We begin with this weekend in sports, the NBA All-Star Game taking place. So hope everybody who enjoyed that. College basketball. How about Vanderbilt and Tennessee? It looked like Vanderbilt, Joe, was right on the path to pulling off the season sweep of Tennessee. And in the first half, they played really well. Tennessee could not defend for the life of them. It was 44-31 after one half of play. And then Tennessee turned it on in the second half. They end up winning 81-76 to get a win at home against Mark Byington and the Vanderbilt Commodores. What'd you make of that game? What'd you make of Vanderbilt's push to start the game and Tennessee's response in the second half?
Yeah, I tell you what, it was a real opportunity for Vanderbilt. I was very impressed. I bet last week Vanderbilt lost both games. Auburn at home, at Tennessee, and I come away very impressed with them because they fought back against Auburn and they were right there against Tennessee. Look, that was Zakai Ziegler was kind of passive in the first half, and even Rick Barnes said after the game, like, I think he said, basically he's probably mad at me because I said stuff to him I normally don't say to him. But he completely dominated the second half. I mean, that's what he did. I think he had 22 of his points. I think it was 22. He ends up with like 22 and 8. All those points in the second half, and just changes the game. And I tell you what, it was right there though, right there all the way until the end. So big for Tennessee. Coming off the disappointing loss at Kentucky, because I thought they had a great chance to win that game, and we're not used to Tennessee being swept by Kentucky. I mean, I think I'm expecting Michelle Perry to call at any point to taunt.
Could happen.
Yeah, but for then I'm like, well, they're going to be ticked off, and they're just gonna tear up Vanderbilt, and it didn't happen that way. But big win for them. And right behind you, I'm watching highlights of Michaela Blake's. Yeah, but one of the great performances I've seen, seriously, for Vanderbilt.
55 points for her.
55 points, but they're down 15 with 6 minutes left. From there, she scores 30.
Yeah.
So she scores 19 the rest of regulation to get it to overtime. She gets – how many people – and you're like in college basketball, men's or women's, someone fouled with less than a second left, down 3, makes all 3. I swear it's it's a free throw, but I feel like so often in that situation they don't make it. She didn't touch net on any of them. 55 freaking points. So the SEC scoring record is Michaela Blake's with 55. Number 2, Michaela Blake's with 53. Division I freshman record, again, 55 and 53. It's insane.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, like she's unbelievable. And, she had the 53-point performance earlier this year. We talked about that, and I was like, 53 as a true freshman in college basketball is unbelievable.
In the SEC.
In the SEC. And now she's done it again and followed it up with 55. I mean, they have a special player over there. It's going to be really interesting to see how they're able to kind of build around her over the next few years here, but it is fun to watch Michaela Blake's do her thing.
So you may not do this because you want all the NIL at Tennessee to go to the football team. Take some of that Diego Pavia NIL and keep Michaela Blake's at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Start the campaign.
Yeah. Could be interesting in terms of the interest level in her this offseason. I would imagine it's pretty high.
But this is where, the best college basketball teams, I saw Pat Forty had a really good tweet. He's like, look at the best teams right now. He's talking about men's college basketball. It's like a lot of teams that have guys that have been there several years because they retain them, and I mean, I think Vanderbilt should be in good shape if she likes the program, likes the coach, is going to a great school, but yeah, I mean, doesn't mean that like Gino isn't going to be DMing at some point,
As we sit here today, how many on the men's side of things, how many SEC teams are getting in a tournament, you think?
Well, I haven't gone through the bracket today. I had them at 13 last week, but Arkansas is close to the 14th. I think Georgia might be dropping. Like 14 are possible. I'm going to guess it's going to be 12 or 13 because, I mean, Oklahoma and Georgia are both fading hard right now. Texas got a big win over Kentucky. So that's your bubble.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this, but I saw this stat pointed out last week. The SEC is 500 since conference play began. I don't know if you've seen that.
Did you see that Carl? We made fun of Carl Ravage. Yeah,
that's good.
Carl Ravage. Well, he actually seriously took Mark Pope played along with it. It was great. Mark Pope's at a press release. Yeah, guys, it is kind of disappointing, isn't it, that we're only 500 since conference play began?
It's like it's been they're just alternating wins and losses all around the conference.
Why is this some great conference?
Jeez,
says who?
That's one of the all-timers. I love that.
Carl Ravage. People already, college baseball fans, and by the way, college baseball has started.
It has.
College baseball fans get mad every year when Carl Ravage comes in like College World Series because he's just been doing MLB, and then they're like, oh, great, he doesn't know even where these teams are from. But man, this is a new low, Carl Ravage.
The Four Nations tournament in hockey going on. The United States has punched their ticket to the championship coming up on Thursday. So I have to say, like, my interest level in this as somebody who is all about hockey heading into the tournament was pretty limited just because, like, I love best on best hockey. I think it's awesome. The fact that the NHL and the NHLPA got away from that for as long as they did, I think it's stupid. And I'm glad they found a way to get back into this. I'm more best on best like Olympic hockey when there's like actual big time stakes
Yes.
involved. Having said that, I don't know that I've ever watched a better hockey game than US and Canada on Saturday. Like the intensity level, the execution, it was phenomenal from start to finish. Maybe the best hockey game I've ever seen on Saturday night.
Better than the 2010 gold medal game?
I don't know that it was better in terms of the stakes of it, but the play, the level of execution, it was better.
Yeah. But that's the thing. And this is what we had an argument last week too on this. This was a best and a worst in sports. Best for Nick, worst for me.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm just like, this just pisses me off all over again that we've had to go through 2 Olympics without this happening.
I agree.
For the best stakes. So it was all this made like, I can't just repeat what I complained about before, but I'm like, hearing David Poyle talk about how, well, we just these guys who can't get them hurt and all this stuff. Okay, so, but this is okay. I mean, this is great, and I agree. I mean, like, this is compelling, and it's going to be fun this week. But also, it's like, okay, let's have this with everyone for the highest stakes,
which we're going to.
Yeah. We're getting back to it.
And I've heard some people say, wow, the NHL has fixed All-Star Weekend. Like, never do All-Star Weekend again and just do this every year. Like, I don't think you need to do this every year either, because I think it loses it if you do it every year. But like doing like a World Cup of hockey or something like this every couple of years and making sure that your butt is at the Olympics every 4 years on best hockey is the way to go.
Yeah.
Like, this is how, like, the ratings are back from the game Saturday night. They're great. Like, it's the highest rated game that's not a Stanley Cup final in the NHL in a long time. So it worked. It's a great thing. Just keep it going. Get it back to Olympic hockey, best on best hockey. I loved every second of it on Saturday night. It was awesome.
Yeah, coming right out, the fist flying, man.
Had a toddler.
Those Kachucks, I tell you what.
Those Kachucks. You know, going back to a couple summers ago when we were talking about, like, what could the Predators do to land Matthew Tkachuk? That'd have been nice.
Yeah.
Been good. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Speaking of the Four Nations tournament in hockey, a development at the goaltender position that does not bode well for the Predators netminder. We'll get more into that coming up and what it means for UC Saros and his future here in Nashville. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Kelton on the text line says, I've only been watching hockey for about 10 years. I've been watching the Four Nations games, and it's crazy. You don't see this type of play during the regular season. I've enjoyed all the games. Now, number one, I think it's hard to bring that intensity level 82 times. Like when you have an 82-game season, it's hard to do that. And number two, you're talking about the best players mostly in the world right now that are out there playing. Now, I say that, Dreisaitl's German. A lot of good Russian players that are not participating in this tournament. So it's not all the best players.
There's a pretty good Swiss player from around here.
There's a pretty good Swiss player around here as well. So not all the best players, but pretty darn high level hockey.
Part of my complaint.
It's hard to replicate in the regular season.
Yeah. It's like Sam Bennett. Yeah, he's a scratch. Yeah, so you get the combination of that excellence, and then there's definitely a different vibe though. But again, that's why. I mean, 2 Olympics. We've missed out on this, and it still ticks me off. Like to me, I'm a huge Olympics person since a young age, and I really think that tournament is up there with the best that you can have in the Olympics. And of all the great things, if you love the Olympics, the swimming, all of it, like that hockey tournament with the pros is hard to beat, and it is. It's like a different energy.
Well, you brought up like 2010 U.S.-Canada gold medal game, still one of the greatest sporting events I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Like it was awesome. And even 2014 when they were in Sochi, like they didn't really have a game like that, but TJ Oshie and the shootout against Russia, like it was awesome. Like it was compelling, even though it was happening at 5 a.m. local time, it was compelling stuff. So we're getting back to it. I'm looking forward to that coming up in the next Winter Olympics here. UC Saros has gone to the bench for Team Finland, Joe. So he gets in the first game. It does not go well for Team Finland or UC Saros against Team USA. And Sweden and Finland played on Saturday in kind of the day game before the nightcap of US and Canada. And Kevin Lankinen, the starting goaltender for Team Finland in that one, they pull off the win in overtime against Sweden. Mikhail Granlund scoring the overtime winner. But Lankinen made a big save right before that in overtime, and Finland goes down the other way, and they win. They're playing this week against Canada, and matter of fact, I think it's tonight. And Kevin Lankinen is going to be the starter. So Lankinen is starting against Canada, which means UC Saros remaining on the bench. So, Joe, it looks like that could be it for UC Saros in the Four Nations tournament. We'll see how it all plays out and what happens here, but Lankinen back in the starter's crease for Finland today. So maybe one and done for Saros in the Four Nations tournament. What do you make of that? And what do you make of just the way this is all playing out right now with UC Saros? His struggles in net this year for the Predators, and did not go well for him the other night against the United States as well.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's not enhanced. It's worsened by the fact that it's his former backup here. It's just I think for Preds fans who are freaking out and panicking about him, like if it was some other Finnish backup, that would still not be the same as Kevin Lankinen, the guy who was clearly, his backup last year. Not as good as him, obviously. A guy who, when they brought him in here, we were like, well, really? You can bring in Kevin Lankinen, be your backup goalie? Is that right? And then he was obviously very good, but it's a bad. I mean, the yelling actually among people at this station, not involving me, which I very much appreciate. This is only going to intensify things because, there's people who are going to say, well, you just make it too big deal. He had a bad game. Lankin got hot. You got to go with the hot hand. No big deal. And then some people are going to look at this like that. How is this not confirmation that Saros is falling off a cliff? And like, how do you look at this and just brush this off? This is a problem.
Yeah, like he's in a really interesting spot right now because, I brought up earlier a few weeks ago when we were having the discussion on him, some numbers that are not flattering to him in terms of goals saved above expected, and that's gone the other way. Now, again, as I said at the time, the goal save expected stat is above expected is not perfect. It does a good job. I don't know if it does an elite job of explaining what's going on out there, because, quality shot for somebody may not be a quality shot for somebody else. Depending on which website you look at, it's different. Like, there's a pretty dramatic difference right now between like what Hockey Reference has and what like Sport Logic has in terms of how they view it. So it's not a perfect stat, but the numbers are what they are with UC Saros. Like, it's not good right now. I brought up, the Andre Vasilevsky example of sometimes goalies just have an off year, right? Like, Vasilevsky, we all know, is one of the best goaltenders of his era. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. And last year, at the age of 29, he's bad. Like, he had a 900 save percentage. His goal saved above expected went the other way. And Tampa Bay squeaked into the playoffs. They were one and done. He just didn't play well. Well, this year he's rebounded. Like, he's got a 918 save percentage. He's played really well. They've got some other problems right now, but he generally speaking has not been an issue for them this year. So sometimes goaltenders just have bad years and they're able to rebound. And maybe that's what UC Saros can do. The concerning part to me is it kind of feels like this is now 2 years of it. And I know, people focus so much on the way things ended last year for the Predators, right? Like, they played really well down the stretch. They made the playoffs. His numbers were a lot better in the second half of the year, which is great. But they're getting ready to pay him to be, and they're not paying him a ton of money, but they're paying him a lot of money to be an elite goaltender. You're not paying him to be bad for half the year, which is what he's been for the last 2 years. He has been an average to below average goalie by the numbers the last 2 years for significant stretches of the season. That is a problem moving forward here. They've got to find a way to get that figured out. Otherwise, it's just like, if this is what you're going to get out of him, then you just don't give yourself much of a chance moving forward here.
So are you saying that you're on Team Stilly and try to trade him before the deal kicks in?
Well, I would have traded him last offseason.
Right.
Offseason before that. I mean, if you can do it, then I'd probably look at it, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that. Let me ask you this. Who's taking him right now? Like, looking at he's about to be 30 years old in April. The numbers are going the wrong way, and he has an 8-year deal that hasn't kicked in yet. I'm not saying that nobody would even consider it. Maybe somebody would. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of teams right now that would be like, yep, UC Saros for 8 years. Sign me up.
Remind me, too, his no trade clause situation.
I believe it's full no trade for the first 6, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah. So, again, with these things, if there's another it doesn't mean that you can't waive it as a player. But, yeah, it's hard for me to – I mean, like a great team that is great other than at goalie, like that's the team you think of. But again, why does that team think that he's the answer?
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't think that anybody would. To me, it's you just riding it out. Like you said, you're hoping that at least last year there was a long stretch where he was more like
where he
himself.
looked like himself. Yeah.
You're hoping that this year is, the Vasilevsky year that gives you hope for sure. Or I don't know if it gives you hope, but at least there's a recent example of, it is possible to not just continue on a downward trend.
Well, and this is also a situation where, as we tend to go to a lot on this show, multiple things can be true at the same time. Like, there's been a lot of arguing that I've seen over the last couple of weeks on social media about, like, well, whose fault is it really? Like, is it UC Saros' fault? Is it the Predators being bad in front of him? Like, how do you divvy up that blame? I think it's both, right? Like, the Predators have been terrible defensively by the numbers this year. They've been terrible offensively by the numbers this year, which, by the way, when you add all that up is how you get to be 30th in the league, right? Like, that's why you're where you are in the standings. But, like, I feel like too often there's just a brushing over the goaltending position. We've talked about that. Like, well, it can't be the goalie's fault. Like, it can't be the goalie's fault. It's like, well,
of course.
Sometimes it is the goalie's fault. I'm not saying it's exclusively the goalie's fault, but he is not helping things right now. And you're paying him to be the eraser, to be the elevator the force multiplier, if you will.
Yeah. Goal saved above expected isn't perfect, but again, you compare it to what you're seeing from him and compare the numbers before and now, it's not that far off. And that is, of course, a stat that's supposed to take away the whatever's going on in front of a goal. It doesn't completely, but it to some extent it does.
Well, in that position, more so than I think a lot of other positions in sports, lot of confidence is required to play that position. And I do wonder, like right now, where is he at confidence wise on that? Like it has to have taken a hit with the way that he's played this year. I can tell you that he was really looking forward to this tournament and really looking forward to maybe being able to show people what he's still got in this tournament. And, you know, you're talking about potentially just being one and done with a poor showing. I wonder where the confidence is at right now.
Yeah, this could end up being obviously a bad thing for him that he was in this at all.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More your thoughts on UC Saros, your concern level for him moving forward. We're going to get into the AFC South picture a little bit later this hour as well. Take more of your thoughts on all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joey from Bellevue saying, Saros getting benched, Forsberg Nyquist with no points in 2 games. Not a good showing from the local guys. JC from Goodlettsville says when Saros is not on his A game, his lack of size is magnified. We've talked about that too. Going back even to the Saros versus Askarov debate, right? Of, all right, Askarov got prototypical goaltender size that you're looking for, the athleticism, all that, and not to revisit that trade because it's done at this point. But one of the things we did talk about with Saros was he's been so heavily reliant on his athleticism and his quickness and going side to side, being able to be efficient with his movement. Does that go quicker when you play that way, particularly as much as he's played over the last few years? And when that happens, how much do you get exposed when you are a smaller goaltender? Is that what we're seeing right now? Like, look, I'll be frank with you. I'm not smart enough to really know that. Like, it's funny. The goaltending position in some ways, like when you ask coaches about it around the league, is kind of similar to like the kicker. Like in the NFL, when you ask about the kick, they're like, yeah, man, they just need to make the kick. I don't know what to say. Like go ask John Tortorella about the goal, and he's like, I mean, stop the puck. Like that's what I teach him to do. So there's a lot that goes into it. They've got a new goaltending department with Mitch Korn leading the way. Ben Vanderklok's a demonstrated very good goaltending coach. So like they have good people working with their goaltenders. But like if that's what it is, and Saros has just lost some of that athleticism and isn't as quick as he used to be, and it's starting to go on him, I don't really know how you overcome that when you don't have the size. Like Pekka had the size. He was 6'5". So maybe when the athleticism started to go a little bit, you still had the size to fall back on, and you just don't have that with Saros.
Yeah. No, I think it has to be concerning because you have to be super explosive, twitchy, quick, and not that you can't be those things into your 30s, but can you be those things at the same level? I feel like if there's a real fix, it's probably making just a stated effort of like, this guy is playing like, 52 games or whatever. Like, I think you have to be really strong at backup goaltender, and you have to split it a little bit and hope that helps him some. Like Jason Goodlettsville's like, Yossi with a bad year, Lausanne injured, Stats MIA, 3 rookies, top line doesn't have 2-way players, and that's all fine. Again, of course, it's not as simple as just, you can't just isolate it. It's not that simple.
Right.
But, all those things aside, there's too much evidence to tell us that, that he's just having a really bad year.
Well, again, he's supposed to be the elevator, right? Like you're paying him to elevate your team, which by the way, we've seen him do time and time again. Like we've seen him, when he was at the top of his game, that's what he did, right? Like he is either single-handedly kind of drugged them to the playoffs or gotten them really close. Like, I think maybe the best I've ever seen him play was a couple of years ago when they sold everybody off, and he was just unbelievable down the stretch. Like it was crazy.
Which, by the way, with all these, who the heck is in front of me right now? Even
like it didn't matter. Like he just was outstanding, and he's not that right now. Like we can window dress it all you want. Like since he has become a full-time NHL starter, this is the worst he's been. So the question you've got to ask, if you're Trotz, if you're Burnett, if you're Predators decision makers right now, is how much of this is just a down year for him, a down year for everybody, and how much of this is signs that it's going the other way with some of these guys? Look, I can't tell you that I'm 100% confident that that's what this is, that it is going the other way, because like logically I look at it and I say, yeah, I realize Saros has played a lot of hockey. They've worn him into the ground a lot over the last few years, but he is only 29 years old. Like you expect this later when you're 33, 34, 35 for this to start to happen. And that's why, when you sign the 8-year deal, I think everybody knew when he signed the deal that, last 3 years could be rough on that thing. But you live with that with what you get on the front end. So I'm not totally convinced that this is just what he is and he's never going to recover from it. But I also am not going to sit here and ignore the reality of what the numbers are telling us right now. And the numbers are telling us that I think if you're not at least concerned about that, then you're not paying attention to what's going on right now.
Or you're just resolved to make excuses.
Right.
So let's say what if Saros played his best? Was at peak Saros this year? Would this team be in any kind of different situation?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think they'd be better. The problem is this is where you get into like two things being true, right? Like Saros has been bad, but their defense is horrible and they can't score. Like they're just a bad team. Like they're a bad hockey team right now. So
like, could he have been the difference in making them from bad to at least like on the fringe?
Well, maybe, but like to start the season, he was pretty good. Like the numbers to start the year for him were pretty good. And yet they still weren't winning because he was getting the worst goal support in the league. So how much different would it be? I don't know. Like I think they've got so many problems right now that it's hard to really determine that. But again, you're paying him to be kind of that force multiplier. And look, when you're scoring 1 goal a game, 2 goals a game, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing in goal, like you're going to lose. Like it's just the league's too good now, and you've got too much offense in this league right now where I don't care how good your goalie is, if you can't score more than 2 a game, then you're just not going to win. Like that's what it is in today's NHL. Problem is right now, like you've got all of those things going wrong, and it goes back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago. It makes it really difficult to determine how close you are to actually getting out of this. Like, is this just everything that could possibly have gone wrong for them this year has gone wrong? Or is this just what they are? And that's with the goalie. That's with the forward group. Defense, I think, is a little bit different because they've gotten younger there and they're kind of switching some pieces around. But fundamentally, I think that's where they're at with this franchise right now.
Yeah. And the reality is that whatever they're going to be in the future, it's largely dependent on him, this being an aberration for him.
For him,
and if it's
forward group, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just isolate him, I mean, if it's not an aberration, man, I mean, that's a tough thing to get around,
Yeah,
it is. It's a tough obstacle to overcome in years to come. Yeah. Which, not to do the not to be like others, but we did tell you so. we did say move on from him. Like Ryan and Nashville's like I said a lot of people said that. I thought it was, I don't know, probably close to a 50-50 debate. It felt like with the fan base, right?
Well,
on
again,
Saros or Scar.
Yes, and we did say that. I will again say, like, I think it's still too early in my book just to like totally judge the 8-year contract right now before it kicks in. But I think you got to be pretty concerned about where things are headed right now. And this is one thing I talked about at the time. Like, to me, it's one thing to give out an 8-year contract when somebody's 26 or 27. When you're giving out an 8-year contract when somebody's 30, you got to be real careful with those.
That's that and a lot of other things are, frankly, like, you are winning big right now. You're winning big right now. You're winning big next year, the year after that.
Yep.
And then, there may be pain, but it's worth it because you're winning big, right?
Yeah. Could there be some surprise moves coming in the AFC South this offseason? We'll get into that coming up next. Take your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Joe, taking a look at the AFC South, the NFL offseason about to start rolling here. The tag window opening up later this week in the NFL. Here in the next week and a half, we've got the NFL Combine, of which Joe Rexrode, very excited, and I'm still holding out hope that he could attend the NFL Combine this year. We'll see how things go.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
And then after that, it's free agency, baby. So we're getting there. The NFL offseason is slowly but surely making its way along here. And I got to thinking, just kind of looking around the division. You know, everybody's focusing on the Titans right now at the number 1 overall pick and what they're going to do with quarterback. We know that there's going to be some quarterback movement with the Titans this offseason, one way or the other. They're either going to bring in some free agents or go draft a quarterback. We know that the Titans are addressing that position. I do look at the rest of the AFC South outside of Houston and wonder, like, could we see something surprising at that position this offseason? Now, there's all this noise over the last, week and a half about, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville has largely kind of shut that down of, we're not trading Trevor Lawrence. So I guess you could throw him into this if you want to. The really interesting one to me, Joe, is what happens with Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis? Because you've got Chris Ballard somehow coming back for, I believe, will this be his 10th year or his 9th year?
He's real close to a decade.
I think this is his 10th year as general manager of the Colts. You got Steichen remaining in place, and you've got Anthony Richardson, who has been extremely underwhelming in his first 2 years. Now, his first year, a lot of it was washed by injury, and he barely played. This past year, he played 11 games. He completed 47.7% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Wasn't good from Anthony Richardson, to the point where he got benched at one point this year for a couple of games, and then they put him back in once they determined that they were tired of watching Joe Flacco play football at that position. So you have, I think, pretty clearly, at least I think, maybe not, I think a coach that's probably on the hot seat heading into next year, and I guess the GM maybe or may not be on the hot seat, according to the fact that he's not been fired yet. So we'll see what happens on that front. But I can't imagine that there's a ton of confidence on the Anthony Richardson part of this right now. So on one hand, Joe, you drafted him 4th overall. He's barely played football. He is only 22 years old, and he's entering into his 3rd year. I think you still want to see what's left on that bone. But you also, if you're the Colts, you need to win. And I just don't know if I see a path right now to them winning a whole lot of football games with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Ballard has talked about how, they probably need to ramp up the level of competition at that position. So we'll see what that looks like. But could Indianapolis be in play to bring in a veteran quarterback? Do you think that we could see a surprise move from them this offseason at that position?
I guess. But honestly, Chris Ballard at this point should just have a press conference and say, guys, either Anthony Richardson becomes great this year or fire me. There's any other franchise in this league. I mean, we complain here all the time about the owner firing everybody all the time.
Yeah.
I can't even, it's hard for me to imagine. Even when they drafted the Richardson, it was everybody kind of agree. Okay, well, this is it. This is your tenure. You got the bad luck with Andrew Luck. Pun not intended, but it worked out, I guess. And then you tried to Band-Aid it with veterans while having a really good team.
Yep.
You did build a good team, and the quarterback plan of veteran kept not working. That's another, by the way, the Colts are a decent example as we talk about the Titans and veterans. Of course, the Titans don't have a good team to go with one either. So, but if he seriously is let's go with a veteran, how could you, I'm sorry, how could you, if you're Robert Irsay, not fire him on the spot? This is it. Your entire tenure is tied to this kid. So maybe in year 3, I mean, he is 22. He has played very little. There is talent there for sure. It's got to be the whole thing. And then to me, what makes sense with the Colts if the owner did things that made sense, is that you fire the whole thing and you have a totally new timeline with a GM and a coach and a quarterback. I mean, that's how Irsay should be looking at it,
Yeah.
but I have no idea how he actually is.
Well, the other part of this is like it's such an interesting time for quarterbacks right now in this league because we're in an era where you're seeing teams move on from highly drafted quarterbacks quicker than they ever have. Now, I thought we were seeing that this year with the Colts and with the Panthers, right? Like Richardson got benched and Bryce Young got benched. Now, Bryce Young came back in as the year went on and played better to the point where I think they feel pretty good about Bryce Young heading into next year.
Better.
Richardson came back in and he had some moments like he looked okay against the Titans. So did everybody else in the league. But I think he completed like 7 passes in that game. You heard him in the running game a little bit. But there was never really that wow performance from Anthony Richardson this year on any sort of consistent basis. He made some throws every now and then where you're like, wow, I mean, look at the arm talent he's got. But by and large, it was a lot of bad from him. So in a time where teams are giving up on the quarterback that they draft highly, I think quicker than they ever have before, how do they view that in Indianapolis? I don't know what the answer is. Like I can't imagine there's a long leash for him heading into next year. Like, you're going to give him the whole year to figure it out. Like, if he struggles the way that he struggled for half the year next year, he's probably done. Like, he's probably out in Indianapolis at that point.
Yeah, you would think. I think Anthony Richardson, more than some quarterbacks who get discarded, will be of high interest to people in terms of, okay, and now you're a backup, keep working on your game. Like, someone's going to be interested in like still him as a developmental project, I think. Again, I'm watching. I'm listening to Stilly tell us that like Mac Jones should be the Titans quarterback. So like it happens. These guys are out there. Levis will be somewhere. Pickett just won a ring. Congratulations, Kenny Pickett. Put that little tiny ring on those baby hands and
Super Bowl
enjoy
champion.
your off season. So that'll happen. But yeah, I would think in Indy, it's probably the whole bunch of them. I know Indy Ben weighed in last week on Titan stuff, and I was like, tell me how. There you go. We got Indy Ben. Indy Ben is actually weighing in on the Colts topic. I'm actually shocked. Okay, he has a chance to be a good starting quarterback considering he's only 22, 23. The Colts fans aren't expecting a big jump, but he's given the chance to prove he's a guy. It's a long text. He said his biggest concern with Anthony Richardson has always been health and availability more than anything else. So, Indy, not playing well at quarterback, that's not a concern?
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned with his health too. But I also think the way that he's going to have to play right now to be effective in the NFL, like if you don't lean into him as a runner, then I don't think right now he's good enough throwing the ball to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Look, I love the ability. I talked about it. He made a throw early in the year. I want to say it was against, I don't know, maybe Chicago or somebody. But it was, it was a laser, 60 yards in the air, right over the shoulder. It was a beautiful throw. And you're like, yep, I can see it. That's why you take him where you take him. But, I watched him play in Green Bay. It was bad, that game. I watched him play against the Titans. He's okay. But Jonathan Taylor ran for 1 billion yards in that game, so he didn't have to do a whole lot. I mean, 47.7% a completion percentage in today's NFL. Like, you almost have to try to be that bad and that inaccurate with the ball.
Yes. No, it's and I just don't know. I don't know where that's going, but it's not good. And Indy Ben, first of all, Levis is 25, not 26. And who cares? First of all, compared to Levis, that's fine. But Levis started 2 years. And then and Anthony Richardson started 1. There's a year difference between them in experience. Is that an important year? Yes. But again, year 3 in this league, the way things go, you can't really ask for much more than this year. And like you said, it may not be this whole year.
Yep. And on the Trevor Lawrence front, by the way, there's a report that went out there that the Steelers had approached the Jags.
Oh, we flipped out about it. It actually happened during the program.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was very, very exciting.
The Jags have since shut that down, according to ESPN. So
yeah.
They said there's no chance, and it's ridiculous that they would consider trading Trevor Lawrence. So there you go.
Yeah, this guy, I forget his name, who did this, is he's like a Big Ten Network guy, but he said, I got it straight from the Jags. So I'd love to know who in the Jags told you that.
Was it
Someone who
Urban
hates
Meyer?
you. Probably.
Urban hanging around. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Which team is most likely to pull off a trade for the Titans at number 1 overall? I've got the numbers. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Robby and Rexrode sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us later in the program at 8 o'clock. We'll get into all things Titans and Predators with him, so looking forward to that coming up later in the program. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Joe, we are inching closer to the NFL draft. As we mentioned, offseason about to get underway. The tag window opens up later this week, combine around the corner, free agency, and then the draft mercifully getting here at the end of April in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The numbers are out on the FanDuel Sportsbook for a lot of different things as it relates to the draft. One of those things is the odds of who will select number 1 overall in the NFL draft. Now, obviously, the Titans, who currently hold that pick, are the favorites at -300. So there you go.
Congrats.
Can you name the team that Vegas has deemed the most likely to make a deal with the Tennessee Titans and to trade for the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft?
I mean, my guess, the fact that you're asking me means that it's probably not right, but my guess would be the Giants.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
It is a significant gap. So the Giants are plus 450 on the FanDuel Sportsbook to pick number 1 overall in the 2025 NFL draft. The next closest team is the Raiders at plus 1,000. So the Giants, heavily the favorite to be the team that trades for the number 1 overall pick with the Tennessee Titans. We know the Giants need a quarterback. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders stuff with them. One of the interesting parts of that is, like, what would it take if you're the Titans in order to do that deal? The Giants have the number 3 pick, so it's not like you'd be moving down very far in the draft. You know, we've seen some teams trade for the number 1 overall pick recently here and have given up a haul, right? So, I mean, I think, you know, one of the big examples was Chicago trading with Carolina. Now, Chicago, I think, moved from number 9 to number 1. So you're talking about a pretty big jump there. And that obviously was a franchise changer for both the Bears and Carolina in that deal there. So I believe in that deal, it was a DJ Moore was a part of it, the number 9 pick, a second-round pick, a first-round pick in 2024, and a second-round pick in 2025. That's a pretty good haul there. Now, you're moving down 2 spots if you're the Titans, so you're not going to get that. So if you're moving down 2 spots, what would be an acceptable deal if you're the Titans in order for you to pull that off? Like, it's interesting to look at it. They've talked about wanting to pick up more top 100 picks. So obviously you'd get number 3. Could you get, you know, a second-round pick this year? Could you get a second and a third this year if you're the Titans from the Giants? Like, what would be an acceptable move to you if you're the Titans to execute this deal?
Yeah, well, certainly you need, I think, at least 2 top 100, you know, if you want to look at it that way, picks. You're not in the third this week, or this week. You're not in the third this year, so is a second and third enough? You know, the thing about the Bears trade, not only the jump, but there is a difference also in, like, the player, right?
Yep.
When you're talking about everyone agrees upon someone everybody thinks can be like an all-time great player, compared to, do people think we don't even know who the number 1 pick would be for sure of these quarterbacks. I mean, I assume they're not trading up to get Abdul Carter, you know?
Probably not.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably Cam Ward, I guess, but you know what I mean? It's like if you're the Giants, you know, I mean, you hope that maybe, like, the relative, like, malaise about these quarterbacks helps you. And I don't know that it necessarily does, but there is a difference. Like, okay, it's a number 1 pick to get a quarterback, but it's not the number 1 pick to get the quarterback that everybody in the league would love to have, you know? I don't know that matters or not, but it's conversation back and forth. Is a second and a third enough? I mean, I'd to me, if I'm the Titans, I'd love to get a second, third, and then something from next year's draft.
Yeah,
If
I would
that's
too.
possible.
Jordan Raanan, who writes for ESPN.com, kind of put this out there a couple days ago. Like, what would it take for the Giants to move up and to grab the number 1 overall pick? And I'll just read kind of part of what he says in his piece here. It says the Giants' first and second round picks provide similar or more value than the top big based on modern draft charts. If the Giants' third round pick and perhaps the 2026 second round pick might provide enough value if it's packaged with number 3 overall for the Titans to make such a move if they're not smitten with Ward or Sanders and wanted to further their quarterback decision another year. That's likely what it's going to take for the Giants to make such a move. Number 3 overall and day 2 picks. Perhaps they could be asked to throw in another mid-round pick or future selection as well. If they're sold on either quarterback, that should not preclude them from making such a potential franchise-altering move. So he's talking about number 3 overall, a couple of day 2 picks there, and then maybe a pick next year in the mid-round as well.
Okay. Because someone, on the text line is like, this year's first, obviously you've swapped first, and then next year's first. And I would ask that. And then maybe what if it's next year's first and like a third this year?
Yeah.
Is that enough? It's not as many picks, but it's next year's first. Texter also mentions neighbors, which
they're not going to do
doubt they're going to do.
No.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, these trades, sometimes a veteran is involved, a player swaps involved. For the most part, though, they usually are just pick trades, which are very valuable in this league.
And again, you're talking about in this scenario with the Giants, you're moving down 2 spots, right? So it is different than somebody coming up from 12 to get to 1. Like, it's going to take a whole lot more if somebody's doing that than it is for you to move down 2 spots there. Like, it just changes the value there. So, I mean, first off, the Giants would have no interest in trading Malik Neighbors. Secondly, you're definitely not doing that if you're moving up 2 spots there. Besides, if you're going to get the quarterback, it'd probably be nice to have, Malik Neighbors for the young quarterback throw the ball to. That'd be my guess.
I would think so. Yes.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Who do you think is the most likely option for the Titans to trade with if that option becomes available at number 1 overall? And what would it take for you to do it if you're the Titans? We'll take more of your thoughts on that. Lots to get to on our text line. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. The Papa Shot National Championship is on the television in our studio, and we were both captivated by it. Papa Shot. They'll put anything on TV nowadays.
That was dominant. That was a dominant performance. I've always believed I've had some good Papa Shot performances. I'm kind of I'm a bank off the back guy.
Yeah.
Just because you can kind of, I mean, really, it's almost like you just throw, instead of actually shooting like a basketball. But that guy does not use the glass and just completely. Why is he killing the guy? Like, they just switch sides and he's just blowing him out that way too. This is great radio.
Yeah.
You guys should check it out. It's on ESPN News right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff. 615-737-1025. The number one overall pick currently belonging to the Tennessee Titans. What would it take for you if you're the Titans to give that up? And which team is most likely? Now, the Giants obviously have been the most popular answer. Chip from Mount Juliet throws out the Jets and the Raiders as well. The Jets have made it official that they are moving on from Aaron Rodgers. So going to be interested to see what they do at quarterback. Could they, do they fall in love with a Cam Ward, a Shedeur Sanders, and try to move up and put themselves in position that way? According to the odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, I mentioned the Giants are the favorite to trade up with the Titans. The Jets, I believe, are fifth. They're the fourth team on that list. So you got the Giants at 1, the Raiders, the Browns, and then the Jets falling in behind that. So the Jets, the fourth most likely team, according to the odds there. Interested to see what they do. One texter said, if you're the Giants, I want next year's first and a fifth, plus this year's first and a third. So that would be a pick swap this year at number 1, a third rounder this year, next year's first round pick, and next year's fifth round pick from the Giants.
That's a haul.
That's a lot.
So obviously you're swapping the first, but then you go next year's first. Yeah, I mean, that's quite a bit. I don't know that I care about getting a fifth.
No.
But I mean, if, not that you can't do something with a fifth, but I do like the idea of the first next year. I'm going to start there with the first next year. The Giants, good chance they stink next year.
There is a decent chance.
There's always a few teams, at least 2-3 teams every year that are way better than you think they're going to be. And maybe that could be them next year. But at this point, you'd feel pretty good about that being a high pick. I definitely think any sort of move down, it just makes sense for the Titans to, get into the third round. I mean, look, if you can get in the second instead of third, great. Get in the second, have 2 seconds, forget the third. But I feel like that first next year is something that you need to try to really push for.
Well, but in this whole conversation, it comes back to kind of the same thing we're talking about with the Titans, right? Like, if the Titans aren't in love with either one of these quarterbacks at the top, is somebody else. And in love to the point where you move up to go get them. That's what's going to be interesting. Like, if we all know the Giants need a quarterback, the Titans need a quarterback too. So if the Titans look at Ward and Sanders and they say, we think they're okay, but we don't really love the idea of picking them at number 1 overall, and we're not totally convinced that they're franchise-changing quarterbacks. Do the Giants have a different evaluation of that? I mean, at the end of the day, all it takes is one. Like, you need one team to have that evaluation to move up. But, like, are these the guys, if you're the Giants, the Jets, the Browns, whoever, that you look at and say, yeah, we got to move heaven and earth to go get these guys at quarterback? And I'm still not totally convinced that we're going to see that.
No, but the things that are coming, if you're the Titans, what you hope is these quarterbacks light it up. I mean, I don't know. Is Shedeur's not going to throw? Is that the thing at the combine? I mean, I don't know about like pro day stuff, but is Cam Ward going to go to the combine and just throw lasers all over the field? And it's an interesting situation because if you're those quarterbacks, you're probably at the top of the draft. So a lot of agents now are just like, nah, let's just not even mess with it. Right. But what you would love if you're the Titans is for like an Anthony Richardson like combine to happen for somebody. Now, of course, then you could be also talked into it. You hope the interviews go amazingly well, all that stuff. I mean, it comes down to it. If you talk yourself into it, then you have to know that you got to give up a lot to get there. The Titans aren't just going to give it to you.
No, exactly. Like if you talk yourself into it, you got to be prepared to pay the price. And again, like that price we just discussed of the pick swap and a couple of day 2 picks, if that's what it ended up being, like that's not a lot to ask if you're convinced that one of those guys is a franchise quarterback, right? Like the quarterback just makes it different. I'm looking at the odds too. What's the odds to go number 1 overall? Cam Ward is the favorite at -140, followed by Abdul Carter and then Travis Hunter. Shedeur Sanders is 4th on that list. By the way, in the 5th best odds to go number 1 overall at plus 4,500 is Jackson Dart. So,
hey,
think of that. What
he's also a quarterback.
He is a quarterback. But I look at that. Like, there's still a chance that the Titans get through this whole thing and they just say, you know what, Cam Ward, that's our guy. We're taking him number 1 overall, and we're going to stick and pick, and that's the way you go. Like if you're the Titans and you get through that process you just talked about with the combine and the interviews and all that, and you feel really strongly about it, then you probably aren't listening to a whole lot of those trade calls at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be surprised if it's possible. Of course, and then of course we'll know because then right after that we have free agency. So, yeah, I mean, I guess again, there's some veterans they could sign, and
just bring in Rodgers to mentor Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Like Aaron, you're going to be the backup, but we want you to come in here and kind of show him the way a little bit in the film room.
What an exciting combination that would be. But yeah, it's. I mean, I guess if you're Titans, like, you have to have an open mind, right? I mean, at this point, I guess if you're a Titans fan, would you feel good or bad about the Titans knowing what they're going to do?
I think I'd feel okay about it at this point. Like, here's the thing with the Cam Ward part of it. If you know that you're not taking a quarterback, I'd probably feel okay with it. But you still have to meet with Cam Ward. You have to go through the interview process with all these guys. But again, I come back to what we talk about all the time. All that's great and all that's important. But the legwork and kind of like your basis of why you're making a decision to draft a quarterback or to not draft a quarterback, I think a lot of that right now should be done, right? Like it's the film. It's the game film that you've seen them play at the college level. That to me remains the most important thing. Do you feel like they can play or do you not? Like have they demonstrated to you that they can have the tools on game day to be a franchise level quarterback? All that other stuff, I'm not saying it's unimportant. The meetings, the combines, the interview processes, all that. But at the end of the day, like the legwork of the film, I think should largely be done by now if you're the Titans.
Yeah. I think the big thing that comes with all the conversations is conversations with the prospect, but also with coaches. So, okay, here on this play, here and tell me what was the call, what were you looking at, what were you thinking? The conversations with the college coaching staff and also with the prospect about the film can definitely change minds on the film to some extent.
Sure.
And there's some stuff that you just don't know. And also you want to hear the prospect go through everything and talk it through. And if you're like, okay, there's a total understanding of this and this or that, whatever. I mean, there's all these extenuating circumstances you may not know about, but yeah, I mean, the film speaks loudest. Jake in Greenbrier says we're inevitably heading toward Ward flashing at the combine and 95% of the fan base back on the Ward train. He is my guy without a doubt if they stay at 1. Yeah. I mean, that I could see it for sure. And again, I hope he does. I mean, we're the combine already is absolutely just brain rot to me. But if we get to the point where no prospects are doing anything at the combine, like, I mean, there's only so many third round offensive guards who put up 225 33 times. We all go goo-goo about it. That can carry the thing, man.
I can't wait for the interviews at the combine, like the media settings. It's like, hey, so which player would you most compare yourself to at the draft or in the NFL? Or like, what's your goal at the combine this year? Or do you want to get bigger and stronger before you're drafted? What do you think about that?
No, the absolute. It's the people. These people need to be ushered out of the building. Have you met with the Jets? Have you met with the Raiders? Have you met with the Browns? Have you met with the Bears? And the
Check it
interviews.
off the list. How many teams have you met with?
How'd that go? Good.
Hey, Shador, did Deion Sanders call in the middle of your interview with every team, or was it just the Titans?
God, it's going to be amazing. Enjoy it, cars.
I mean, we're gonna have like the hall monitor this year, like who stole the chips in the meeting room and who didn't, like who took them, who didn't.
Yeah.
Candy bars.
No, we should have listened. You know, Levis taking the trail mix was an omen about his quarterback play.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the draft. We'll have the Rob rant coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away, a 4-pack of tickets to the Nashville Celebrity Comic-Con at the Nashville Fairgrounds coming up on March 1st and March the 2nd. We call number 5, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a 4-pack of tickets to the Nashville Celebrity Comic-Con coming up March 1st and March 2nd. A lot of things going on our text line right now, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Yeah, nice try, Big Joe.
A lot of different thoughts.
Big Joe got us last week. He got us as Beth in complaining about, but actually it worked out pretty well because I was mostly complaining about Kaharski, so that it got Kaharski going. So I don't feel so bad getting gotten by Big Joe with his latest fake name, but I have said some very mean things to Big Joe on the text line, and then I sent one actually accidentally to William from Dover. Thank you, William, for being understanding. My nasty comments are just meant for Big Joe, not for you.
Big Joe using the name of my Aunt Beth on the text line. Good stuff. Good pull from Big Joe.
He's really he's digging deep here to try to get me.
It continues to work.
I think the next time he does it, I'm not kidding. I'm just going to tweet out his cell number. I know it by heart now. I know it, Big Joe.
Oh.
6154. All right, I'll stop.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Keith says, although I don't want one of these quarterbacks, taking one of the two would at least give me a reason to watch the Titans and add some excitement. Another texter says, is Cam Ward confirmed to be throwing at the combine? If not, the only thing you're going to learn is maybe height and weight. Will we get a hand size measurement? That's really the most important thing.
Yeah, hand size is
A
important.
lot of people worried about the hand size at the NFL combine.
Yep. Well,
I don't know if you heard, but Kenny Pickett had some small hands.
yes. Yeah. I don't know. I have not heard about Cam Ward throwing. I know that there's been some talk. Shedeur Sanders has been asked about throwing, and it just didn't sound like he was going to. If I'm Shedeur Sanders and I'm his agent, I don't actually want to be compared to Cam Ward throwing the football at the combine because Cam Ward has a bigger arm.
Yeah.
Cam Ward has more quote unquote arm talent. Now, to me, arm talent, accuracy is more important than being able to, throw it a million miles. No offense to Joe Milton. And I'm not saying Cam Ward's inaccurate. I'm just saying, I think Shedeur Sanders' arm talent is just fine. But I think Cam Ward, if you compared them side by side, he'd probably shine compared to Shedeur, I would guess.
Well, I just wondered, are we moving into a new stage with these quarterbacks where they don't test at the combine anymore? Not just quarterbacks, right? Like, Marvin Harrison didn't do anything last year. Marvin Harrison Jr.
The very top.
Like, are we moving into a place where that becomes more of the norm? And are these guys like in that category? Like, is Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, are they in the category where they fit that mold?
Well,
like
they're the top two. I
right.
mean, if you're the top at your position, then you don't want to lose that. You don't want anything to hurt you.
Right. Like, it makes
Jackson
sense.
darn well better do everything.
You would
Milroe, Dart, all those other guys.
And Milroe is a guy that I think could help himself with the combine, right? Like I think like Milroe, we know when he runs the 40-yard dash, I mean, he's going to blaze it. Like, he's incredibly fast. How important is that at the quarterback position? I don't know, but
doesn't hurt.
It's gonna.
If you run a 4.4, it's not gonna hurt you.
It's gonna blow somebody away. If he has a good workout at the combine, like Milroe's a guy where if he has a really good workout, could that be enough to get somebody to sneak up into the first round and take it, right? Like Richardson clearly helped himself a ton with his workout at the combine. Now, it's not gone so well for him in terms of the actual games of the NFL, but clearly, after having maybe the greatest combine workout we've seen at the quarterback position, that played a factor in him being drafted where he was drafted.
No doubt. Played a factor. Now, the thing on him, we got in this argument last week, but the thing on him, and if you remember, we talked about when I got back from the combine 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago?
Yep. I
was like, talking to Dane Brugler and Nick Baumgartner, they're like, the film's way better than you think on Richardson. It just is, There's bad games, but the film is actually pretty complimentary. I'm like, oh, okay. Again, I saw him in play amazing football one game, so I saw him play on TV like some crappy games, but the film helped him. So how much of it was each, I don't know, but to your point, yeah, the combine certainly helped him. Yeah, I hope we don't get to the point that like first round picks are just like, well, I'm a first round pick, so I'm just not going to do it. But also, I don't care if we get to the point where no one wants to test, so we stop making the NFL freaking scouting combine like it's sports. That'd be okay. Like big picture, we'll all complain, like, oh, get out there and compete. And I agree. But also, if they all stop and then this stops being an event and we can just have a draft, that'd be okay.
You don't want to watch the
We have basketball and hockey right now. It's great.
you don't want to watch the
good
bench
time.
press.
Yeah,
The broad jump.
The shuttle. It's a good one, man.
Yeah.
Sure, triple jump.
I got one text that
Javelin.
says, "Why not just get Hendon Hooker? Forget drafting." That's the Joe Rexrode playbook right there. Just go get Hendon Hooker.
Well, how are you going to get him? Why are the Detroit Lions letting him go? Hendon Hooker is a really interesting storyline because a lot of people freaked out when the Lions went and got Bridgewater from his high school coaching job and
Pulled him off the sideline.
Yeah. But I don't know what that says. I don't think it necessarily means the Lions have given up on him. But I mean, at this point, they seem to be, invested in him as potentially their future. But I don't know.
Well, the thing is, like, I do think at some point, if you're them, you got to make a decision on him in terms of what you're going to do with it. Like Jared Goff's 30. So like Jared Goff, I don't think is going anywhere anytime. I mean, just signed a huge deal. He's a good quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's a good quarterback. I don't think Jared Goff's going anywhere anytime soon. So like how long is Hendon Hooker going to sit there and be the backup? And then like probably the more important thing is like, is there anything Hendon Hooker can do in the preseason or if he gets in a game or two next year with Detroit where some team looks at him and says, yeah, we'll give up significant draft capital to go get him.
Yeah.
Like right now, what are you giving up to go get Hendon Hooker? You're probably not giving up a ton, right? Like to the point where it's probably not going to be worth it if you're Detroit to make the move.
Right. Yeah. If you're a team that you count on depend on your intel. Yeah, there's going to be more film. And it was pretty good, I thought, in the preseason last year. There'll be more film in that way. If you absolutely loved him coming out, but if anybody really, really loved him, then he wouldn't have gone where he went. Right?
Exactly.
So, but again, there's also like the learning curve thing with Tennessee offense. So I could see someone being like, okay, at this point now, he should be more ready for this. He's been in a great offense, great OC. Learning behind. You could talk yourself into him too, but yeah, I don't think you're going to give up too much. The question is, like, what are the Lions? How attached to him are the Lions? I really don't know.
Yeah, like do the Lions view him as, all right, we're going to have a couple more years with Jared Goff, and then he's the starting quarterback after that? Because that's different. I mean, they might view him that way. I have no idea. I'm just saying Jared Goff's 30 years old. He's going to be playing football for a lot longer.
Yeah, he is. But also, if Goff, if Goff falls off a little bit next year, like Tannehill did after his turnover fest in a playoff game for a team that was supposed to go to the Super Bowl, I could see it flipping quick. Now, but then it just they may be looking elsewhere as opposed to inward and to Hooker. I'm going to stick with my belief that Hendon Hooker can be a good starting quarterback in this league until proven otherwise. I know a lot of people make fun of the whole thing. This was his rookie year. He was rehabbing his knee last year, but we'll see.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rob Rant coming up next. We'll have Corey Curtis from News 2 at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Our lives have been taken over by screens. Yesterday I saw a chart that somebody posted on Twitter when I was staring at my own screen, showing how the U.S. birth rate has declined by 20% since 2007. Well, guess what else happened in 2007? The first smartphone was released.
I'm calling the cops.
Oh, good. You mean the only number your phone has?
I just took a photo of your license plate. Your life is ruined.
Yeah, well, I just took a picture of your face, and now my phone is ruined.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. Always love when Keezer gets amused by the packages that he puts together back there.
Yeah,
he's back there just laughing. He's proud of himself
having a
for
good
whatever that
old
was.
time.
Good stuff. Joe, I feel like every time I go on vacation and or come back from vacation, there's a crowd-related rant that I come up with. Last time it was the people that just have the audacity to like cut line and stuff and to just pretend that their time and opportunity is more important than yours. So I yelled about that last year. I was stunned being around as many people as I've been around the last week at the Disney parks. How many people can't walk anymore without their heads just directly in the phone? I've determined that one of the big problems in our nation and really our world right now is the total lack of spatial awareness. I think a lot of problems begin with lack of spatial awareness. You're walking along, and I realize that, in this particular setting in a Disney park, they're big places. If you haven't been there a lot, it's very easy to get lost. So a lot of times you're looking on your phone or for a map for places to go. So I get all that. A lot of that, though, a lot of what I experienced this past week wasn't that. It was people either on their phones, just twiddling their thumbs, scrolling, watching TikTok, whatever, and walking at the same time, or just stopping, coming to a complete stop in the middle and just sitting there on the phone, just sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, scrolling on Facebook. All this is going, and I guess I thought to myself, it was an old man yelling at a cloud moment. Look, I'm as guilty as anybody when it comes to screen time. Like you get your weekly screen time reports on your iPhone that come up, and it's embarrassing sometimes the amount of time per day that I like spend on my phone. So like I'm not absolving myself here. One thing I'm generally speaking pretty good about is when it's time to walk and time to move my body, the phone goes up and you're able to walk and move and navigate without running into the side of everyone or coming to a complete stop. It's almost like zombie land. Like just the amount of people walking with their head buried in their phone, not looking where they're going. And I think there are a lot of good things, Joe, that have happened because of the smartphone. Like you can do a lot of things now. You can keep in touch with a lot of people. Like, if you don't live in the same general area as your family, it can be really cool, or you can FaceTime people and all that stuff's great. Largely, our society is falling apart at the seams because people can't navigate themselves anymore. It's unbelievable. Like I was walking around, I looked at my wife at one point on this Disney trip and was just like, can no one walk anymore? Like, can you not put your phone down to just walk and move out of the way? It's crazy how addicted we are to this thing.
As you say, yeah, as you say this, probably planning to go to Cedar Point this summer. I got to make sure to take a snapshot of that. I mean, I've experienced that to a point, but I could see it getting worse. So that's a great way to put it, like zombie land. And it's like, I walk the dogs, and a lot of times, yeah, as you know, I'm the only one who walks the dogs.
Yeah.
Gus and Quinn pooping, peeing in my house. But a lot of times I'll be in the neighborhood and I'll be like going through like email or going through Slack or whatever as I'm walking them. So I guess I'm guilty too. But yeah, like if you're in a place like that, don't you want to get to the next thing? You're going to the next thing. You put it away for whatever, 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how long are these? Well, I mean, sometimes you're taking a longer stroll, but again, you're always going somewhere, right?
Well, and there's like in a place like that, there's things to see, like away from your phone.
Right.
Like they have theming
Yeah.
for the specific
Yeah.
reason of, oh, cool, look at that, that's awesome. Look at that over there.
But instead, you're just like,
But you're like on your 9th game of Tetris on your phone, and it's just I don't for the life of me understand it. Now, I'm a part of that generation where like my generation growing, I'm 32. So we were the generation that is kind of like the last one who had a significant period of our life without the smartphone. Like we had cell phone and we could text and all that other stuff, but like the smartphone wasn't really a thing until I was like a senior in high school.
yeah.
So I know what life was like before we were just sticking our head in the sand all the time, watching all this stuff. I will say, like, I was largely off my phone this past week, other than like recording some stuff with the kid here and there. Like,
Using it
but like
as
I
needed.
didn't, like, I wasn't on Twitter at all, wasn't on Facebook. It was great. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, it was a nice mental reset to get away from all that stuff for a while. But like, it's amazing how addicted every one of us are to our smartphone.
But yeah, but it's like, if you are there in that moment, why is that the time to watch a show or play a video game or look at social media? If you get a notification like a work email, okay.
Yeah.
Then why not go sit down on a bench, deal with that, and then
It's a big thing. Like, it's with like the teenagers too. That's another thing. Like, it's the adults were bad about it this weekend, but like the teenagers, like they can't walk without having the AirPods in and the phone out. It's like you can't walk from this restaurant over here to the ride that's 60 feet away without putting your AirPods in. It's like, what's going on around here? I know I'm totally gone fully old man yelling.
No, but believe me, for me, I mean, it's a daily, like, oh, you guys, can we watch a show, or is it we're not even able to watch a TV show together now? You guys can you put it, one in particular?
Yeah.
It has to be constant TikTok, constant, like, can you give your attention to anything? Please read a book.
Like, I do wonder, like, do we ever swing back the other way where it's like, yeah, this is all just too much. Let's just remove ourselves from this. I doubt it.
I mean,
like, we're there now.
Yeah,
so.
that's probably going to get us killed anyway. I mean, it's probably going to be the end of the world, so we won't. But whatever human race emerges from that, hopefully they will have like more control with smartphones.
I mean, the general sense of the genesis of my friend's frustration with all this, like the amount of people that I just had to dodge this week because they had heads down in their phone. Like, I felt like I was in a dodgeball tournament at one point. I was like, can anybody look and see where they're going out here? What's going on?
That's insane. Yeah. So of those people, because teenagers are teenagers. How many of those people were not teenagers?
Oh, a lot of adults, a lot of grown 40 some odd, 50 some odd year old adults, just head down in the phone. And again, like, I understand some of them probably looking at a map. A lot of them I know were not, because as I was dodging them, I saw that they were scrolling through TikTok. And it's like, put the TikTok down for half a second and get to where you're going. It's not that hard. Like, if you want to look at it in line for a ride,
yeah, of course.
knock yourself
That's
out.
it's great for that.
Yeah.
Once you get to your thing, then you just standing there. Great.
Yeah. It was just unbelievable this week. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us here in just a few minutes. We'll get his thoughts on all things Titans and the Nashville Predators as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Corey Curtis from News 2, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. Corey, good morning. How are you?
I am spectacular. How are you this morning?
Doing wonderful. I was 2 days ago in a place, Corey, where it was 85 degrees and sunny, and today it's 20 degrees and not sunny. It's fun.
So you're to blame. We got it.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Maybe.
Your name is Freeze.
Yes, apparently so. Apparently so. Corey, we were having a discussion earlier on the program about the AFC South. Could there be some potential
A worst
surprises
division in the
this
history of the
offseason?
league?
It
No.
also could be that. What about Anthony Richardson? Like, if you're the Colts, you've brought back Steichen. Ballard's on his 50th chance as the GM of the Colts. How are you viewing Richardson, and do you think there's a chance they could bring in a veteran this offseason to compete with him, given how bad he's been in the relatively limited sample size?
You mean like they did last season?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be realistic. It didn't take them long to bench him. And I think, number one, they rushed him. All right. So they've got to look themselves in the mirror and know that they rushed a guy onto the field who wasn't ready to play. And I know you want to get guys experience, and there's no beating experience, but he wasn't ready for that experience in that dose. And not just, football wise, but maturity wise. He's had a couple of instances of maturity wise, not being ready. And look, I understand being intoxicated with the physical attributes because they're there. But, just because you discover, the biggest diamond on earth doesn't mean it's ready to put in the ring. It's still got to get chiseled and it's still got to get polished. And so he still needs that. And so it goes to, what you want from him this season and what your expectations is. Your expectation to, compete for the division and a spot in the AFC Championship game, then you probably need to bring someone in to compete with him, because you have to be prepared for the ups and the downs with him, at this point. And I also think, beyond all of that, durability wise, he has shown he will get hurt, and they have shown they're not afraid to put him in harm's way, which is a terrible combination. So yes, they definitely need to bring in a veteran.
So that's fine. If they bring in a veteran, we all can, everybody knows that that's it for Richardson with the Colts. How I could say it right now already, but how would Chris Ballard keep his job after that?
Well, I don't know. How's he keeping it to this point? The owner's a crazy man.
Well, that's the thing. I was talking about it earlier. It's like we complain about the too many firings here. There's not enough there. But, he obviously the argument in his favor was, well, it wasn't his fault with luck, and he's never been able to pick the young quarterback. So, this has got to be it, right?
You would think. Everybody's liked their roster. Everybody's liked their draft classes in the past. I don't know where they stand at this point. They have had good players, but they're in the same spot. The Bears, the Titans, several teams have been in for a long time, where you're in this black hole at quarterback, and it drags you down. And it doesn't matter how good your roster is. If you don't, look at the Titans from last year. Were they a good team? No. But how many games do they win with good quarterback play? Not just okay. Say they just have a good quarterback. Put McNair in there. How many games do they win? Probably 6 or 7.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, so that's where they are. They're just muddling along. Working through Jacoby Brissett and working through Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson and Matt Ryan and the end of Phillip Rivers. They're just muddling along, and I think they deserve as much criticism for that as anything in the way they handled that and that they just kept kicking the can down the road. And by the time Ballard actually, pulled the string on a quarterback, like I said, they've rushed him in there. That was the time to have the veteran on the roster and to let him play until the kid was ready. So, yeah, I mean, whose choice is that? Is that Ballard's or is that the owner's? Is Ballard going for a quick sugar rush with one of those guys? But it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. And at some point, you have to look at a guy and say, you've had your chance. You've had your chance, and you haven't won the division. When was the last time they went to the playoffs?
Oh man,
I think a couple of years, right? Did they get there a couple of years ago? Or am I wrong about that?
Did they get there as a 2 seed out of the AFC South?
I don't remember the last time they've been in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, what 2014 was that the last time they won the division?
That is correct. Yeah, the division's
also
been
the
forever.
last time they won in Jacksonville. Everyone in the world can win in Jacksonville, including Franklin Middle School, except for the Colts.
Well, that was the Wentz era was tough. Yeah, so 2020 was the last time they got to the wild card in 20. So it's been a 4 year.
I'm going to guess they made a really deep run that year too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Corey, Aaron Rodgers has been shown the door by the New York Jets. They are moving on at quarterback. I'm not going to stop. I'm reading off some numbers for you. He's got 28 touchdowns last year, 11 picks, almost 4,000 yards passing. He is 41 years old. So if the Titans are going the veteran quarterback route, how much consideration will they give Aaron Rodgers?
I would give zero. I mean, it's like, injecting cancer into your body. It's not a great idea. All right. I mean, look, you are trying to create a culture. All right. And you can't create a culture by interjecting a 41-year-old. I don't even know.
Choose your words carefully.
41-year-old person who is, totally self-driven. Okay. I mean, he is about Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't about the Jets. Okay. He won't be about the Titans. You need a guy who is in it for the 53. Okay. You're trying to, like I said, build a culture. That is not someone you can build a culture around, in my estimation. Do I still think he can play at an NFL level? Sure. But, with those numbers, how many games did the Jets win?
They won 5.
Okay. And would we say their roster was considerably better than the Titans?
I would.
Okay. So, having said that, no.
3,700 yards. Just saying. Those numbers did surprise me.
I understand that, but I also understand Egypt during minicamp. All right. Choosing yourself.
Fascinating place to go, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, you got a vacation. You got a vacation. We're all allowed to take vacations, right?
Was Egypt open in June?
I think so.
Nice and toasty too, actually.
So Robby was there.
Yeah.
So, okay, 0%. It's hard for me to put 0 on him just because of the lack of great options. But
sure, the Titans' percentage is probably higher than that. You asked me my percentage is 0.
And what's your highest percent? Remind me your highest percentage among the veterans.
Oh, my highest percent. I would be about Derek Carr if he becomes available.
Yeah, which I don't think is going to happen, right? Am I?
I mean, I don't know.
I guess you never know with them, but you feel like Kellen Moore probably wants to come in and win football games as opposed to.
Well, he didn't make a ringing endorsement at that opening presser.
Yeah. So let's say, okay.
He's an NFL quarterback.
I mean, obviously,
Thanks, Kellen.
He is in the league.
Yeah.
His name is Derek. So, okay, let's take him away.
Okay. Well, I guess we're at Darnold then, right?
Okay. So you like Carr over Darnold. Okay.
Yeah, I do because of he's got 4,000-yard seasons. He's got 3 or 4 more where he's in with 100, 150 yards. He's a career passer up around 67, 68%. He's played with Brian Callahan in the past. I consider him more of a quick trigger guy back there. I think he would fit what they need more. And I know people are going to say, well, he's made of glass. Last year he played 10 games. Before last year, he had played at least 15 games every year of his career.
All right, you kind of talked me into it.
All right.
I'm more into it now.
Corey, let me ask you this on the UC Saros front. So we've gone through the numbers of what it's been like with the Predators so far this year. It's not been very good. He's played probably the worst hockey of his career as a starter in the NHL. Yeah, the team around him also not helping, but he has not been very good. He gets to the Four Nations tournament and he gets shelled by Team USA and is now not starting. Kevin Lankinen started last time out. Lankinen's going to start again today for Finland. So how do you view the UC Saros part of all this with the 8-year contract not even having kicked in yet?
Well, I mean, they got to get him right. And I think he needs to sit down, just like with Finland. And I think you need to start Justus Sununen in the net and let him get stuff figured out. And, work on – I mean, Mitch Korn's back with the team, right?
Yes.
All right. Get those two together, get them in the Mitch Korn lab, and just let him work. And spot start him until you think he's got some of his confidence back and worked out whatever he's got worked out. Because right now, it's just like – I mean, it's just pouring gasoline on a fire. I mean, could the team be better in front of him? Sure. But, what is a goalie's job? It's to be an eraser. And right now he's like when you're in grade school and you just finished your bubble test and the eraser is gone and you're just trying to erase, but instead you're just kind of smearing the lead along with the base of the pencil.
Nice.
I mean, this is really graphic, but I mean, it's a disaster back there. And I like UC Saros. And again, just because I'm saying sit him down doesn't mean I'm saying sit him down forever. I'm saying sit him down so you can get him right again and playing like UC Saros again. I mean, we all go through crisis moments in our life. I mean, I've had a few of them, where I think I'm the worst sportscaster that ever lived. I'm never going to get another job in my life. And you work your way through them. They have another goalie. Okay. He is allowed to play while the other guy gets right. And I think it's more important to get him right than to thrust him back out on the ice.
Well, I think also they're not going anywhere this year. There's no reason to run him into the ground in the last part of the season this year. Get him some rest heading into next year.
Well, it's just like I said, what's going to be better for him, working on his game and getting right, or giving up 4.5 goals a game to finish the season?
Right.
And living with that coming into next year.
Yep. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle that part of it. Corey, great stuff as always, my friend. Thanks for taking time to be with us this morning, and we will talk to you next week.
Yeah, hopefully Kevin Lankinen has a bad game, though, today so that we get USA-Canada Part 2.
Hey, how awesome was that the other night? It was good stuff.
I've always said international hockey is better than anything.
Yep, I love it. Corey Curtis joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, brought to you by Tennessee Men's Clinic. We'll take your reaction to what Corey Curtis had to say, take more of your thoughts on the Titans, your thoughts on UC Saros on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Nashville's best deal this week from Bavarian Beer House, located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy traditional German beer, brats, giant pretzels, and more in their expansive beer hall and garden. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals. Get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Appreciate Corey Curtis for being with us in the last segment. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Corey Curtis, not given much time for the Aaron Rodgers discussion, says Team Derek Carr is the way that he would go. I am interested to see if Carr becomes available. What is New Orleans going to do at quarterback if he's not available? We know Rodgers is out there. What's going to happen with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? There's the Stafford stuff in the background that I don't think really affects the Titans directly, but if he goes somewhere else, what do the Rams do at quarterback? How does that affect the carousel? All those things. We're getting closer. I mean, the tag window opens up in the NFL later this week, and then free agency happens in less than a month. So we're getting closer, Joe, to kind of figuring out, number one, an idea of what the Titans are thinking. Like, do they aggressively go after one of these quarterbacks in free agency? And how does that affect the draft? And then number two, where do all these pieces kind of fit as it relates to quarterback and the shuffle? Where does Darnold end up? Is he still in Minnesota? Does Derek Carr become available? Who is willing to take a chance and make Aaron Rodgers the starting quarterback of their football team if he wants to continue playing at age 41 next year? Going to be really interested to see how that the veteran part of this shuffles around. And that's not even mentioning, Kirk Cousins. Like, where's he going to end up as a starting quarterback?
Yeah, there's it's going to be fascinating. We're not too far from starting to get some answers here. The Saints. So let's say if they don't, okay, let's say the Saints are just like, it's time to move on. What if the Saints offered a trade for one and Carr is part of that trade package? The Saints really want one of those guys. You're now moving down to 9.
Yeah.
They're offering you Derek Carr and more. But, obviously they're giving you 9 for 1, and they're giving you Derek Carr, which they hope would be, would minimize the draft capital they'd have to give you otherwise. Would that be something the Titans should entertain?
You could entertain it. I still think in addition to Derek Carr, if it was me making the decision, you still have to give up a lot in terms of draft capital beyond that, because like one of the things, if I'm the Titans, I want to walk away with here, regardless of if it's at 1, at 3, at 5, wherever. I need a foundational young player that you can build around.
Yep.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a quarterback, although it'd be great if it was. But whether it's Hunter or Abdul Carter or who knows, maybe you feel great about one of these tackles. Like I need a young player that gets injected in this lineup that you feel good about being a foundational piece for your franchise for years to come. Can you get that at 9? You can,
but the guys who seem like absolute locks are off the board at that point.
Right. So I don't dismiss it out of hand. Like I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. He's 34. So at what point does thing start to go the other way on him? Is that already starting? Like, I'm interested to see how teams view that. I would not dismiss it out of hand, but regardless of what the Titans do via trade in this draft, I'd have a tough time moving down far enough where you don't feel like you could come away with one of those foundational younger players in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, so much of that would have to do with maybe you feel like there is someone who is going to be there for you who is that kind of player. And then it's a lot of it is what you think of Carr. I mean, I understand the Carr Callahan history. That's important for sure. He'd be fine. I mean, as a bridge quarterback, he'd be, I guess, just about as good as anyone. Again, with Darnold, you're hoping for a little bit more.
Yeah.
With Darnold, you're hoping that was the start of something last year and that you're going to get the best of him. You're not going to get the best of Derek Carr or really any of these guys. Darnold, you hope you do. This is why I understand people hate the take, but I still hope, you would hope with Justin Fields that there's improvement ahead potentially, whereas with these other guys, that's really not reality. Someone says Carr's only good when he doesn't get pressured. He's horrible under any kind of distress. I'm not disputing that, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I've seen Derek Carr, to me, be better in those situations watching him play than like a Cousins or a Goff.
Yeah.
Who to me are they are the throwback statues in this league right now.
Yeah. Like, again, Derek Carr to me is not a whole lot different than most of the options right now at quarterback. You can talk yourself into a lot of it, right? Like if you're the Titans, you could say, well, Russell Wilson, pretty good for half the year last year, and then it started to kind of fall off. But we feel like if we get that level of play that we saw from the first half of the year from Russell Wilson, we'll be in good shape. You can talk yourself into Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins was pretty good first half of the year, and then it totally fell off at the end there. So why was that? Can you fix that here? I mean, even Rodgers. Like Rodgers is 41. There's a lot that comes with it. The numbers not that bad from last year. You can talk yourself into a lot of this here. Like I just don't. Other than Stafford becoming available, and we've talked about that just doesn't feel realistic for the Titans. I think a lot of these guys, to me, are pretty similar with where things are in their careers right now. It's like you could talk yourself into them having a good year or two for you. None of these guys are probably, with the possible exception of Darnold, going to be a long-term answer for you at quarterback.
Yeah, basically every quarterback option is talking yourself into it to some extent, which is very comforting.
Yeah.
This texter says, I'm a Saints fan and watch every game. Trust me, Joe. I'm not disputing you, and I didn't watch a lot of the Saints this year, so I know guys get slower and a little, they get older, they get slower. I do remember Arden Key looking like LT against him in the opener of the 2023 season. So
Wow, Arden Key.
But I'm just telling you, texter, I still think he's got a ways to go to be as stationary and unable to navigate anything as Cousins and Goff are.
That 5-week stretch of like Arden Key from like August of that training camp that you're like, good Lord, he's just smoking this Andre Dillard every play. This Andre Dillard cannot block Arden Key. And then the first game he had against the Saints, it's like, Titans found an all-pro.
Yeah.
And then that was about it.
I mean, that last week, who was it? It was a TD. TD was on PK. I think he actually he basically said Key was better this year than Landry. I think he said that. I mean, if I'm misquoting TD, then I apologize. But he said something to that effect. But basically, like we were talking about Landry falling off, and he's like, I mean, Key and Landry, and it's like when you think about it, I mean, they were both kind of similar levels of effectiveness, very spotty.
Not especially encouraging. On that
no, it's not. That's not because Arden Key has lifted his game to this high level. No.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get into on the text line. Plus, we'll get into what Corey had to say on the UC Saros front as well. He has gone to the bench for Team Finland in the Four Nations tournament. What do we make of that? And just the prognosis of where he's at in his career right now and how fixable are some of these issues. We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The Four Nations tournament underway in the world of hockey. I said it earlier in the show, U.S. and Canada on Saturday night was awesome. Honestly, I didn't have a whole lot of interest in this tournament heading into it from the standpoint of, like, I'm a big fan of best on best international hockey. I think it's awesome. Like the 2010 Olympics for me are, I was a senior in high school. It's one of my favorite sports memories of all time is the entire tournament of the 2010 hockey Winter Olympics. And they've gone away from that. The last few Olympics, I just haven't really cared about the international hockey part of it. Glad to see international hockey back going best on best. But with the Four Nations, I was like, okay, well, Dreisaitl's not playing in Germany and Russia's not in this. And it's like, okay, how good is this really going to be? U.S. Canada was awesome. Like, it was a huge win for USA Hockey, a big statement to go into Canada, win in that environment. I thought the game itself was one of the best hockey games I've seen, just in terms of the intensity, the execution, the level of play, all of it, the physicality. Like, there was a lot of big hits thrown around in that game. Loved it. We'll see if Canada takes care of business today and there's a rematch on Thursday for the championship. I'm rooting for that. I want to see a U.S.-Canada final. It was awesome. In the meantime, you've got UC Saros starting in net for Finland in their first game against USA. They get shelled in that game, and he ends up going to the bench. Kevin Lankinen starts last time out for Finland against Sweden. They win in overtime. Lankinen starting again today against Canada. So it could be one and done for UC Saros in the Four Nations tournament. The Four Nations tournament is not the be-all, end-all. It's not, the world's biggest hockey tournament by any stretch of the imagination. But I can tell you, based on some conversations I've had, like, UC Saros was really looking forward to the Four Nations tournament to represent his country and to, like, prove himself, like, that he can still play at a high level in high stakes hockey. And it may be one and done for him at this tournament, which brings back into fold, Joe, the larger conversation of him of where exactly is he with his game? Is this just a down year for him, like it seems like it is for the majority of this roster? Or is this a sign of things to come with an 8-year contract that has not even kicked in yet to this point? So how do you view where we currently stand with UC Saros, with him having played one game in the Four Nations tournament and since going to the bench in favor of Kevin Lankinen?
Yeah, well, this is just gasoline for the UC Saros screamers right now, which, again, we've talked a fair amount about it before this, about his decline, his poor play this year. But then you watch this and how this is unfolded, and it's just a nightmare scenario for him. I wonder, just in this tournament, if Finland is not playing for the championship, would it not make sense to give him that last game? Do him a solid?
Yeah. Or they could go with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's not played at all. I mean, they could throw him in there too. Just, hey, here's a game for you.
Let everybody have
Let everybody play.
I mean, obviously, like, if they win today and Lankinen plays great, then
he's going to play again.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
But, like, if they were to lose, I don't know. It just it'd be nice to see Saros get another opportunity, and you would think that, everybody in Finland and everybody on the team Finland understands the score with him too, right? Like, this is kind of a nightmare considering the year he's had, the contract that's going on, the discourse that comes with that. So that'll be interesting. But as far as Saros overall, yeah, look, you wonder not just the physical situation with being undersized and sort of relying on athleticism, but just something like this. If confidence starts to go, how hard is that to get back as a goaltender?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I said it earlier in the show. I think this is a scenario with him in general where I think a few different things are true at the same time. There's this big argument, Stilly's been a part of it, but a lot of Preds Twitter has talked about it, is what's more to blame? Is it Saros? Is it the team around him? The defensive coverage? Like, why are we seeing what we're seeing from him and this group this year? I think it's a couple things. Number one, they just have not been a good offensive team this year. To start the season, Saros actually was pretty good. Like his numbers to start the year were pretty good, and they couldn't score. They could not score at all. They were the worst offensive team in the league, and thus you didn't win a whole lot of games early in the year. In the aftermath of that, they moved Stamkos to the number one center, and for a while, the offense looked really good, right? Like they were scoring like 3.5 goals a game, and then Saros went into a rut, and he couldn't make a save, and then the wins and losses started to go the other way, not because of the offense, but because of the lack of good goaltending and the defensive play in front of him. I think right now what you're seeing is the offense isn't good for the Predators. It's been wildly inconsistent. The power play has been wildly inconsistent. The defensive coverage, with all the changes they've made, with Carrier gone and Fabro gone, and they brought up Willsby and they brought Justin Barron into the lineup. They've had some injuries back there. The defense has been bad. Like the way that they've played in their own zone, the coverage, the numbers, all of it are bad. And he's not been good. Like we talked about goals saved above expected. It's not a perfect stat, but I do think it does a decent job of illustrating like goalies that are making high level saves and playing at a high level, generally speaking, are near the top of that category. And he's not. Like it differs depending on which website you look at, but he's not having the same type of success in those numbers that we're used to seeing. So a combination of all those things is how you end up where you are in the standings, right? When you're not good at playing defense, you can't score, and your goaltending's having a bad year. That's how you end up 30th in the league. So it's not a surprise that that all those things are happening right now, and that's where they are. The question is, how fixable is it? Like, how fixable is the offense moving forward? I would like to think it's fixable with some of the talent that they have and some of the guys they've got coming up. I think the defense, they've got some decisions to make in terms of who they're keeping back there and who they're elevating up. But the goalie's not going anywhere. I know people are talking about the trade part of this right now. The trade clause doesn't kick in until the contract kicks in. I don't think he's going anywhere. Like if you're another team right now and the Predators call you about potentially moving UC Saros, do you have a lot of interest in that right now with an 8-year contract that's about to begin with 2 years now of the numbers going the wrong way? I find that hard to believe.
And if the Preds even entertain that, were to entertain that also,
which by the way, I don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't either. But what a look for Trotz that would be.
Right.
Right. Again, like last year was the huge fork in the road that we argued about. For a long time last year, arguing in favor of moving on from him. And not because I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for you. Not because I thought that this was going to happen, but just because, with Askarov, you had the traits of someone, and obviously you had the price control, all that stuff. And Saros is just that this is not the time. Yeah. He got that other deal before, and so now you pushed it back to where you're really asking for a lot of pain when you give someone this deal at that point in their at that age, and especially when they're an undersized goalie who depends on athleticism.
Now, the one thing I will say on kind of the wait and see part of this, I'm not totally giving up on him or the contract yet. Like we talked about the Andrei Vasilevsky example earlier, right? Like Vasilevsky has been an elite goaltender for a long time. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. He was bad last year. Like by the numbers, he did not have a good year last year, and he has rebounded nicely this year. He's playing well. They're roughly the same age. I think Vasilevsky is 30, and Saros is about to turn 30. So it can happen. Like he could come back next year, and he could look like the UC Saros that we're used to seeing, and then you don't worry about it for the time being. So I'm not totally giving up on that yet. I'm concerned because it has been 2 years where there have been significant stretches of time where he has not looked like the UC Saros you paid him to be. The other part of this that's going to be interesting to see, not only how that affects Saros, but how it affects the moves the Predators are able to make, moves around the league. The cap is going up a lot. Cap is going up, I think, more than most people thought it would over the next 3 years. So when you factor that in, and Saros, I think, coming in at a number that you and I think both would agree, ended up being a little bit less than we thought it was going to be, when he entered into the contract negotiation part of this, he's under the $8 million mark. Would that make it more movable at some point? Or does that make it easier to swallow with the cap going up the way it is? Like the cap over the next 3 years is going to take a big jump in the NHL. So how does that factor into all of it as well? Like, let's say he doesn't get back to ever being the elite of the elite. Let's say he's pretty good for the next 3 or 4 years. He's a slightly above average goalie getting paid that money. Can you live with that if you're the Predators with the money you're paying?
Yeah, you have to. And honestly, at this point, would you sign up for that? That's a question.
Yeah.
I think I might, because, if you still have the flexibility to do things to improve your team, a lot of the next couple of years with the Nashville Predators is just like hope. It really is just really just hoping that some of these things work out. But a pretty good above average goalie, you would be overpaying him, but like you could be worse than that. And so, what does that do for you?
Well, right now he's not league average. Like that's the problem. Like the numbers right now is he's like right around league average, slightly below. And that's what you don't want. Like when you have that and you don't have the surrounding pieces right now offensively, or at least you thought you did, but you don't, clearly based on the offense the production that we've seen. If he's not going to elevate, then where does that leave your team? Like you're paying him and you signed him because you believe that he can be, if not the difference maker for you, a big difference maker for you. And right now he's not. So can you overcome that based on the way you've structured your team?
No,
I don't know.
I mean, like something's going to have to get way better. That it's not any move that you make. It's just, performance in several places.
And again, like, is he falling off a cliff? Are we watching him fall off a cliff right now? Maybe. Like, I think if you're not at least concerned about that, I said it earlier, I don't know if you're living in reality.
Yeah, you're deluding yourself.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he is. Like, he's 29. So, like, in theory, he still should be at the top of his game right now. Now, sometimes goaltenders, people in hockey in general, can extend the top of their game till they're 37, 38. Sometimes it falls off at 30. Like, it's just hard to predict with people. I'm not totally throwing in like the white flag on UC Saros and panicking yet. But I think it's been long enough and long enough stretches over the last 2 years of poor play for it to really be a concern if you're having honest conversations with yourself if you're Barry Trotz moving forward. I don't know how you couldn't be.
No. And I guess you could then get to, well, gosh, let's look around. But I'm with you. I don't even think he's going to do that.
I don't.
It's no one. He's not going to like what he hears, but I don't even think he does. I mean, I think you have to, because you know what? Even if there's a glimmer of that out publicly, which eventually that stuff does get out one way or the other. Again, one, what are you saying about yourself if you're Barry Trotz? But two, then think about that as another confidence hit to Saros, who already needs to rebuild that for sure.
Yep. We'll take more of your thoughts on UC Saros coming up next. 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Got a texter, Joey from Gallatin says, I think it's fair to say you can't just blame defense alone. Talking about Saros playing in the Four Nations face-off with the best players in Finland kind of shows there's more to his poor play than just poor defense. Now, I will say this. I'm with you. Like, it's not just defense. I think he is certainly to blame for some of what we're seeing right now. I will say, I think Team USA is a whole lot better than Team Finland, and like you kind of saw that as the game went along. I think Team USA, I'm not going to say they're clearly the best team in the tournament. They played really well the other night. They were definitely better than Canada the other night. I think you're probably going to see a rematch on Thursday, so we'll see what that looks like. I did think heading into the tournament that Finland, of the four teams, probably had the worst roster. Now, they beat Sweden in overtime, so good for them. But I thought as that game went on, you could see USA was kind of all over them at that point. So you can factor that in if you want to. I don't think it changes the conversation all that much. Saros, I think, continues to struggle. I think what you brought up is a really big thing with him right now. You heard Corey Curtis talking up earlier this hour. Like, do you sit him down the rest of the year? And I'm not saying you don't play him at all, but like, do you alternate? Like, do you go Saros one night, on and then the next night? Saros one night, on and then the next night? Like, I think from a confidence standpoint, maybe that does help. I think what I threw out there more than anything, like, there's no reason this year to throw him in, like, run him into the ground. Like, you're not making the playoffs. You're probably gonna, when you get back on Saturday and you start playing, the deadline's right around the corner. They're gonna make some moves to sell off. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense to, if not go 50-50, pretty close to it with him and Annunen the rest of the way.
Yeah. I mean, look, if he plays incredible one night, he gets on a heater, okay, then play him more. But I think you certainly can do that. Why not? Two ends of the spectrum on the text line. One, talking about Trotz, stay-at-home defense, and Bruno's fully to blame for the defensive structure deficiency. Saros is shell-shocked from such poor coverage. And this texter asks, is this like the Deshaun Watson situation with the Browns?
It is not.
There's a few differences there. But it could be, I mean, look, it could be a bad contract for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not quite that. Like,
definitely not that.
So let's not get crazy here.
Yeah, I would say that's two opposite ends of the spectrum there. Look, on the Bruno part of this thing, like, is his system partly to blame of why the defensive coverage has been so bad? Maybe. I don't know. Like, that's something they got to take a look at this offseason. I mean, I think they're going to take a look at the coaching staff in general this offseason. I think you still have to determine, like, who needs to be a part of this defense core long-term and who doesn't. Like, does Jeremy Lazan need to be a part of this defense core long-term? Does Justin Barron, like, does he need to be a part of this long-term? Like, there's some decisions to make on that front. That's going to do it for us today. Good to be back on the program today.
Yeah, welcome back.
We will be back at it 6 a.m. tomorrow. Chasing Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.